Hello, tool users. This is Derek again with another, I guess you could call it an episode on YouTube of, how to use these tools and, going over what these tools are good for. Today we're doing wrenches. Wrenches are used for basically turning any kind of bolt or nut. Sometimes used to turn a pipe, if you're doing like plumbing work. Anyhow, let's get started here. Again, this video is not really designed for people that know a whole lot about tools and already know how to use them. This is more suited for people that don't know, that are wanting to learn. So yeah, again, let's get started here. So these are wrenches. There's all different kinds here. You got this end of a wrench that's called the box end, or the open end rather. This end over here is called the box end. You see how it's closed all the way around. So when you're breaking a nut loose, what you want to do is you want to try to start with the box end so it doesn't round the nut or the bolt that you're on. Because if you go and you try to push and you put a lot of leverage, sometimes these forks can open up. And what it'll try to do is it'll try to go around these sharp corners and it'll round out your nut. So what you want to do is when you first break a bolt loose, if you can get the open end on it, that's what you want to do. That's the best way. Once it's loose, you can use your open end on there. Show you the difference between a couple different types of wrenches that are good for that kind of thing. So this is just a regular, wrench. This over here is called a ratcheting wrench. So once you put your bolt on there, well, this is not the same size, but you can sit there and turn it and it'll turn off, so you don't have to sit there and take a bite each time and then take your wrench off and take another bite. You can just have it on there the whole time. Now wrenches are really good when you're in a tight space. Say you got a bolt in an engine bay and there's something right here where you cannot get a socket wrench on there. That's when you're going to want to get your wrench on there, because you have the room to do it. If there's not a whole lot of clearance, that's the job for the wrench. That's where you want to have a good wrench set. Now there's two different kinds of wrenches. There's standard and metric. Most of your older American vehicles were standard. Most of the newer American vehicles and pretty much all foreign vehicles are metric. So if you get a set and you see how it says 18 millimeter here, and then this wrench right here says 7/8. The ones that have the millimeter are the metric ones. The ones that have a fraction are the standard ones. So just be aware when you're picking out a wrench set, what are you going to be working on? Are you going to be working on, a newer foreign car or a newer American car? If so, you're going to want to get the metric set, not the standard set. The standard set's not going to have a lot of the sizes you need. So wrenches are good for things other than just cars. Like this, for instance, is called a pipe wrench. A lot of plumbers use these things, and what they do is they'll get on like a pipe, and this will only turn one way. So you do like that and it turns the pipe. So if you're threading in a pipe or threading out a pipe, it's really the best wrench for pipe work. Again, this will only turn the pipe one way, so you got to be aware if you're on it this way versus that way, because otherwise it'll just slip. It kind of acts like a ratchet in itself. One thing you can do a lot is if you're on a bolt and it's really stuck and you have a pipe. Now granted, this isn't necessarily always the best way, it's not the safest way, but you can put a pipe on the end of a wrench and you'll have extra leverage to break it loose. So it'll help you break that nut loose that may otherwise not be able to be broken loose with a shorter wrench. That's the other topic I would like to talk about, is when you have two wrenches of the same size here, one shorter than the other, you're going to need a lot of leverage to break something loose with this short wrench. The longer a wrench you can get on it, the better it is to break the bolt loose initially. So that's something to be aware of if you're going in, to something and you need a lot of power, a longer wrench, if it fits, is going to be the way to get in there. Now there's several specialty type wrenches out there. Like this one has 2 open ends in it, and what this one's really good for, it's also thinner. It's good for like hydraulic work, like if you need to get in a certain angle and you know, turn something. It's really great for getting in there, and you know, maybe you only have this much swing room. Well, that's where these little angles come in. You might be able to swing it up here and then have to switch over to this other side and then swing up a little bit. And it may take you a while to get the you know, fastener loose, but it's better than just having one that you can only fit one way. That's another thing. You see how it's at an angle here? It's kind of sloping this way. When you get on something, you turn it. If you turn it this way, back the other way, you can get on it and get a better bite, usually, if the area is limited. So that's one thing to keep in mind. This right here is for brake lines. If you notice, it's kind of almost has that other side to it, but when you have a line, you have to be able to get on it and then go down to the nut. But at the same time, a lot of the lines are really fragile, in that if you put a regular open end wrench on it, it'll really take a big chance on you rounding out the nut and not being able to get it off. So that's when you want to use these like flare nut style wrenches, is when you're working on like brake lines, hydraulic lines, things of that nature, air lines. You know, you got offset wrenches. That's for like getting into certain areas. If you know you're obstructed here and you need to get down in there and turn it, it's good for obstructed areas. These are great wrenches for doing hydraulic work, like on, you know, tractors and excavators, equipment, anything with hydraulic lines. They open up really wide, so you can get on something and then break it loose. You're not going to want to use anything that's really adjustable on small nuts and bolts, because what it's going to have a tendency to do is there's going to be some slop in this when you try to turn, and it's going to be very likely that you round out your head on your bolt. So when you use something like this, it needs to be something bigger, or something like a hydraulic cylinder, line, whatever. That's generally, you know, what that's good for. One other thing is, a lot of those hydraulic line, they're tough. They're really tough to get off. So you can put this on and you can try to use like a breaker bar, or another alternative is to get a hammer and strike the end. It kind of creates a little bit of an impact. What it'll do is it'll jar the nut, and sometimes it'll break it loose. It'll make it easier to get that initial looseness to where you can just take it off from there. Sometimes you get in a situation where you don't have a custom tool to do the job, but you might have a cheap one. You know, you can put these in vices. If you got a cheap one, don't worry about breaking it. You can put it in a vise and bend it any which way you need it to, and then bend it back. It's not gonna be a big deal. You know, you can get a wrench set from a store for like $20. So that's something to be aware of if you need something fixed, and it's in a tough spot. Bend it. Don't go bending your high dollar, you know, wrenches. It's nice to have a cheap set just in case you run into that issue. One thing I did miss here is on these ratchet wrenches, some of them have a selector for front and back, like to, you know, put a bolt on or take one off. This set does not. You'll just flip it around. Like if you're tightening, you'll put it on there one way. If not, you'll put it on there the other way. It's pretty basic stuff there. But yeah, that's generally about it with wrenches. It's pretty straightforward. There's several different kinds. If you can only afford one set, you know, look at what you're working on. Are you working on something newer that, you know, has a lot of metric bolts? Then get that set. a lot of the stuff that, you know, a metric head will fit a lot of the standard sizes, so it'll work. Anyhow, glad y'all tuned in today. Have a wonderful day.